welcome or welcome back to my channel, Goddess of Gore. My name is Vix and I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. Today I want to tell you about some of the books that have been or are going to be released this month, which I think sound phenomenal, some of which you may have not caught the scent of yet, and there's 20 to tell you about, so we'd better get on with it. A plethora of books get released every month, some of which become instant buzz books. Everyone is talking about them, but I want to talk about some of the ones that have caught my eye that you may not be seeing everywhere. Of course, there will be some of those popular ones mentioned in here, but I hope I can bring something new to you today. I will start off by saying that these are UK release dates and may be different in your region. The Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell was released on the 2nd of February, and episode 13 by Craig DiLouie, whose release date has literally changed a million times so far this year, but it was released on the 16th of Feb digitally, and I have already mentioned them both in my February TBR video, and if you want to know more about them, go and look over there, because I'm going to hopefully get them read this month. But apart from those two, let me tell you about the other 18 amazing sounding books that are also coming out this month that I want to get to as soon as possible. I think I'll put them in release date order and then give a brief synopsis, because I obviously don't know that much about them either. Weyard by Emilia Hart is a debut novel that came out on the 2nd of February. It is a historical gothic fiction set in 3 different timelines of 2019, 1942 and 1619. It starts off in 2019 with Kate leaving an abusive relationship in London, and she seeks refuge in the Weyard cottage, the home she inherited from her great aunt. Violet, a supposed eccentric entomologist, someone who was more interested in collecting insects and climbing trees than in becoming a proper young lady, until a chain of shocking events changed Violet's life forever. There in the cottage, a secret lurks in the bones of the house, a secret about the women in her family, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century, when her ancestor, Alatha Weyard, was put on trial for witchcraft after being accused of killing a man. Known for her uncanny connection with nature and animals, she is a threat that must be eliminated. Weaving together the stories of 3 women across 5 centuries, Weyard is an enthralling novel of female resilience and transformative power of the natural world. And if I know anything about me, it's that I love a good historical witch story. Also released on the 2nd of February, All the Dangerous Things by the Flicker in the Dark author Stacy Willingham, another mystery thriller. And this synopsis opens with: today is day 364. 364 days since my last night of sleep. 364 days since my son Mason was taken from his bed. The police have stopped looking. My husband wants me to move on, but I need to keep his story alive. Someone knows what has happened to my son, and I'm going to find them. Sounds good, yes? So a year ago, Isabel's son was taken from his cot while her and her husband slept in the room next door. There were no clues, nothing for the police to follow, but obviously the parent or person responsible for a baby does not stop until they turn up something. Except for the occasional catnap or small blackout where she loses track of time, Isabel hasn't slept in a year. She thinks of nothing else but her baby, but deep down she knows she can't go on like this. So she agrees to be interviewed by a true crime podcaster, Waylon Spencer, in hopes of warming up the case and refreshing memories. But his interest in Isabel's past makes her nervous. His incessant questioning, paired with her severe insomnia, has brought up uncomfortable memories from her own childhood, making Isabel start to doubt her recollection of the night of Mason's disappearance, as well as second-guessing who she can trust, including herself. What has happened to Mason Drake, and what if the past is better left buried? Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amélie Wen Zhao was also released on the 2nd of February and is a YA fantasy based on Chinese folklore and mythology rooted in the Chinese genres of xinxia and wuxia. But what those stories are, I'm not sure. But I do know that this is a ferocious tale of romance and fate set in a fallen kingdom. One girl carries the key to discovering the secrets of her nation's past and unleashing the demons that sleep at its heart. Lan spends her days scavenging for remnants in the past, for anything that might help her understand the strange mark burnt into her skin by her mother in the last act before she died. The mark is mysterious. It is a character no one but Lan can see, except for the boy, Zen, who turned up one night to save her life. Zen is a practitioner, one of the fabled magicians of the Last Kingdom, whose abilities were rumoured to be drawn from the demons they communed with. Magic believed to be long lost, and magic that must be hidden at all costs. Both Lan and Zen have secrets buried deep within, secrets they must hide from others, and secrets that they themselves have yet to discover. Both hold the power to liberate their land from the Alantian colonizers who invaded their kingdom, and both hold the power to destroy the world. Fate has connected them, and together, as they embark on an adventure deep into the pine forests and misty mountains of the Last Kingdom to find an order of practicing masters who are planning to overthrow the Alantian regime, and then the battle for the Last Kingdom begins. That sounds epic. Stardust in Their Veins by Laura Sebastian, another YA fantasy, and book 2 in the Castles in Their Bones series. This came out on the 7th of February. I haven't read the first book yet, but I read the synopsis and thought it sounded brilliant. So this series is about triplet girls, Daphne, Beatrice and Sophronia, who leave their home to marry princes across the country as their mother had planned for them. But these girls are trained in the art of deception, and their mother is the mastermind behind the overthrowing of all the powers in the kingdoms. These books are full of seduction, power, politics and magic. With enemies around every corner, the girls don't know who they can trust. But if they've learned anything though, it's that the game is always changing. Venco by Cherie Dimaline came out on the 7th of February, an urban magical fantasy steeped in history and a quest through the darkly magical city of New Orleans. I really want to get to this because I have wanted to read more of her work since I read Empire of Wild in November. And I wasn't that blown away, to be honest, but I have to give her another try, and this book sounds amazing. This is about Lucky St. James, a Métis millennial barely hanging on when she learns she'll be evicted from the tiny Toronto apartment she shares with her grumpy but loving grandmother Stella. But then, one night, something strange and irresistible calls out to Lucky. She burrows through a wall to find a tarnished silver spoon humming with otherworldly energy, etched with a crooked-nosed witch and the word Salem. Lucky is familiar with the magic of her indigenous ancestors, but she has no idea that the spoon connects her to a teeming network of witches across North America, who have been anxiously awaiting her discovery, and generations of witches have been waiting for centuries for the seven spoons to come together, igniting a new era and restoring women to their rightful power. Venco's witches hide in plain sight wherever women gather: Tupperware parties, Mummy and Me classes, suburban book clubs. Since colonial times, they have waited the moment the seven spoons will come together. Under the cover of a company called Venco, a front company fueled by vast resources of dark money. But who's this? J. Christos, a very powerful adversary who is stalking their every move, and he happens to be a roguish and deadly witch hunter, as old as witchcraft itself. Lucky and Stella set out on a road trip to find the seventh spoon, but what awaits them is a showdown that will determine whether Venco will remain underground and hidden or become something more powerful. How good does that sound? I'm so excited.
So excited.
Of course, I had to mention Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones, the second book in the horror suspense slasher Lake Witch series that also came out on the 7th of February. Jade Daniels returns to Proof Rock, Idaho after 4 years on Thursday, December the 12th, and by Friday the 13th, 36 hours later, there will be 30 less people in the world. In this edge of your seat, pulse pounding story, something akin to the horror film Friday the 13th. This is a serial killer showdown with Jade and Dark Mill South as he escapes during a blizzard while he's being transferred to another prison. Obviously, being book 2, there's not much to go on without spoiling book 1. And can you believe I still haven't got to the end of book 1? I know! Am I even a horror reader?
Who is she? Who is she? Where did you find her?
A haunted house horror story next with The Spite House by Johnny Compton, and this is a bit confusing because just like episode 13, the digital version comes out first. So that was available on ebook on the 7th of February, but physically it looks around mid-March. In this one we meet Eric Ross, who's on the run from a mysterious past with his 2 young daughters. He's left his wife, his house, his whole life behind in Maryland, and he's desperate for money. It's not easy to find steady, safe work when you can't provide references. You can't stay in one place for long, and you're paranoid that your past is creeping back upon you. But he thinks his luck is about to change when he comes across the strange advert for the Masson house. The property, notorious for being one of the most haunted places in Texas, needs a caretaker of sorts. The owner is looking for proof of paranormal activity. All they need to do is stay in the house and keep a detailed record of everything that happens there, provided the house's horrors don't drive them all mad, that is, like the caretakers that have been before them. The job calls to Eric not just because there's a huge payout if they can make it through, but because he wants to explore the secrets of the Spite House himself. If it is indeed haunted, maybe it will help him understand the uncanny power that clings to his own family, driving them from town to town, making them afraid to stop running. This sounds like it could be a lot of fun. The Heroines by Laura Shepperson was released on the 9th of Feb, and another debut novel and another historical fiction, but this one is one of those Greek myth retellings. This is about a royal family scandal. The crowds have flocked to Athens to watch and hear of the most shocking trial of the ancient world. Phaedra, young bride of King Theseus, has accused their stepson Hippolytus of rape. He's a prince, a talented horseman, a promising noble with his whole life ahead of him. She's a young and neglected wife, the youngest in the long line of Cretan women with less than savoury reputations. The men of Athens must determine the truth, who is guilty and who is innocent. But the women know truth is a slippery thing. After all, this is the age of heroes and the age of monsters. There are 2 sides to every story, and theirs has gone unheard until now. I think this could be quite interesting in light of the kind of stories we hear every day of justice and injustices just like this in modern times. Our Shade of Night by Mariana Enrīquez, translated by Megan McDowell. And if you don't know, Megan has translated some amazing pieces of fiction, including Mariana's previous works. This is a paranormal horror mystery that came out on the 13th of February about a woman's mysterious death puts her husband and son on a collision course with a demonic family. Devastated by the death of his wife and mother they both loved, united in grief, the pair travel to her ancestral home where they must confront a terrifying legacy she has bequeathed. Gasper is 6 years old when the Order first came for him, a group of wealthy acolytes who seek to harness the darkness no matter the cost. Among them, Gasper's grandmother, whose twisted desires have already driven her to commit unspeakable acts in the search of immortality. His father could find what was lost. His father knew when someone was going to die. His father had talked to him about the dead, who rode in on the wind. The dead travel fast. As the Order tries to pull him into their evil, he and his father take flight, attempting to outrun a powerful clan that will do anything to ensure its own survival. But how far will Gasper's father go to protect his child? And can anyone escape their fate? For years they have exploited his father's ability to commune with the dead and the demonic, presiding over macabre rituals where the unwanted and the disappeared are tortured and executed, sacrificed to the darkness. Now they want a successor, and now father and son are in flight, hunted by the Order. Nothing will stop them, nothing is beyond them. Surrounded by horrors, can Gasper and Juan break free? Moving back and forth in time from London in the swinging 60s to the brutal years of Argentina's military dictatorship and its turbulent aftermath, this is full of broken families, cursed land, inheritance, power and terrible sacrifices a father will make to help his son escape his destinies. The Tale of the Last Flower Bride was released the 16th of February. It is a dark, gothic, spellbinding romantic fairy tale by Roshani Chokshi. Once upon a time, a scholar of myths who believed in fairy tales marries a beautiful, mysterious woman named Indigo Maxwell Cantinera. They exchange gifts and stories and believe they will live happily ever after. And in exchange for her love, Indigo extracted a promise that her bridegroom would never pry into her past. When Indigo learns that her estranged aunt is dying, the couple return to her childhood home, the House of Dreams. The bridegroom can't help but snoop, because within the crumbling manors, extravagant rooms and musty halls, there lurks the shadow of another girl, Azure, Indigo's dearest childhood friend, who disappeared without a trace. As the house slowly reveals his wife's secret, the bridegroom will be forced to choose between reality and fantasy, even if doing so threatens to destroy their marriage or their lives. This is said to have the haunting atmosphere of Mexican Gothic and the dreamlike quality of The Invisible Life of Paddy LaRue. Bright and Deadly Things by Lexie Elliot. They wrote How to Kill Your Best Friend. If you haven't read that, I haven't. And it is also released on the 16th of Feb. Packed full of twists and turns, this is a suspense thriller. Following the death of her husband, Amélie takes a trip to the French Alps to the rustic chalet nestled at the foot of the verdant, snow-topped Alps. Off the grid, no electricity or water, with her friends, university colleagues and students, while she takes the time to heal. Something feels off though, heightening Amelie's existing grief-filled anxiety. Before she even makes it to the airport, Amélie interrupts a break-in at her home, and once at the chalet, she senses the tension between the guests. She discovers an inappropriate liaison between the student and a colleague, and when the student suddenly disappears and Amélie sees her deceased husband's number in her call history, she realises she had better figure out who she can trust, or the next disappearance might be her own. High tension and paranoia seems prevalent in this isolation psychological novel. An epic fantasy, The Shadow Casket by Chris Wooding. This too was released 16th of February. It is the sequel to The Ember Blade, part 2 in the Darkwater Legacy books, and I haven't read The Ember Blade yet, but I do want to read them both now the second of what I think is going to be 3 has been released. And because this is a continuing series, I won't be saying too much, except these books are designed to be a return to the classic fantasy adventures and values. From a modern perspective, this is a coming-of-age series featuring a strong cast of diverse characters, brilliant set pieces and a powerful fellowship of characters, and epic plot-driven story. Lost Girls by Kate Harmer, released on the 16th of February as well, and this is a follow-up to The Girl in the Red Coat, which I read a couple of years ago with my local library book club. So the first book was about a girl who was taken after getting separated from her mother while at a fair, and then this little girl is raised by someone who she is told and she believes to be her grandfather. He tells her that her mother has had an accident and he will take care of her until she's better. But he has taken her because he believes she has an amazing gift, and we are left to wonder, does she? None of that is a spoiler. It's on the back of the book, by the way. So we return to the world of Mom Beth in this mystery cult thriller novel. After Carmel has been away for 5 years, she just wants to enjoy her new life with her daughter, but she can't forget about the cult and the man who took Carmel. Digging into her past, Carmel uncovers secrets which suggest that she wasn't the only lost girl, and which put her in danger all over again. While her mother struggles to salvage the safety they've only just found, Carmel tries to come to terms with who she has become. But she remains haunted by the mystery at the heart of her disappearance as a child and what happened to the other lost girls. The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden, a psychological thriller coming out on the 20th of February. Again, this is a second book that follows Millie the maid. Sounds like a cosy fantasy, but no! I am assured that this is one of those wow thrillers. So Millie seems to be extremely unlucky in the employers she picks, but then beggars can't be choosers because Millie has a past of her own, and the less questions asked by those wealthy employers, the better. So she's back this time in a penthouse in Manhattan, no less, as live-in housekeeper for the Garricks. But you know how it goes when things seem too good to be true. Millie hasn't met Mrs. Garrick yet until she knocks on her bedroom door, and what she sees inside changes everything. If I want to read this, I will have to read the first one. I had hoped it would be a standalone, but reading further, I think you have to have read The Housemaid first. Correct me if I'm wrong though. A horror sci-fi Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder will be released on the 21st of February. A cosmic horror tells the unforgettable tale of transformation and survival, told by 3 women surviving in a world devastated by a disastrous transformation as a virus tears across the globe, transforming its victims in nightmarish ways. As the world collapses, dark forces pull a small group of women together. Humanity has been irrevocably changed by a virus that radically alters its victims. Erin, once quiet and closeted, acquires an appetite for a woman and her brain. Why does forbidden fruit taste so good? And Savannah, a professional BDSM switch, discovers a new turn-on, committing brutal murders for her eldritch masters, must band together to try to survive, while Mariva, plagued with chronic tumours, is too horrified to acknowledge her divine role in the coming apocalypse. And as her growths multiply, so too does her desperation. This is based upon her own short story, Magdala Amygdala. Indie published The Suffering by MJ Mars comes out on the 24th of February, and listen to this quote. It was a suffering like no other, and oh how they suffered. Say no more, I'm in. Recreating a seance that led to the infamous Victorian Suffering Massacre with his friends seemed like a good idea at the time to Kyle, who lives in the Brackenby house with 5 angry ghosts lurking in the walls. One of his ancestors banished the angry spirits back in 1876, but they have been waiting for an opportunity to finally get out. One by one, the 5 terrifying ghosts latch onto each of the students who reside at Brackenby, preying on their deepest fears. As the story goes along, we find out about the history of the ghosts before their deaths and just what made them so mad in the first place to be haunting them. It's up to Kyle and his friends to uncover the real secrets of the seance and banish the ghosts for good. But they soon come to realise that it isn't Brackenby House that's haunted at all. They are. And the ghosts will stop at nothing to continue the suffering. Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger is released on the 28th and is a suspense thriller about 3 couples who rent a luxury cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway to die for in this atmospheric and gripping locked room psychological thriller. Now, do we think that this is going to have rich people's drama trope, I wonder? An isolated 5-star luxe cabin, hot tubs, views, and even a personal chef. A relaxing getaway for those that can. But the owner of the cabin seems a bit handsy, and a loose-lipped employee. The guests find out about the chilling history of this particular cabin. A storm brews outside and inside as the family secrets come out as the weather turns. But will it be nature or the guests that turn this perfect weekend into a perfect nightmare? And then, finally, that last book on this enormous list. Why do they all come out this month? She is a Haunting is a debut by Trang Tan Tran. This deliciously spooky, yearning, romantic YA gothic ghost story will be released on the 28th of February. Jade Ingen has always lied to fit in. She's straight enough, Vietnamese enough, American enough, at least for this summer with her estranged father in Vietnam. Just 5 weeks of ignoring the quietly decaying French colonial house he's fixing up, and then college, which equals freedom. It's not long before Jade is waking up every morning feeling like something has clawed down her throat from the inside. Then she sees the ghost of a beautiful bride who gives her a cryptic warning. Don't eat. She tells her father and little sister, but of course they don't believe her, so Jade has to try and scare them into leaving the house. With the help of Florence, the daughter of one of her dad's friends, they set up a haunting in the hope it will be enough for them to want to run from the house. But the house has other plans, of course. It's hungry. A home, after all, is only as powerful as those who breathe new life into its bones, and this one is determined never to be abandoned again. I hope you have enjoyed these books I've mentioned today, because I'm hoping to make this a new monthly addition to the channel. And if there's any you've heard of coming soon, or any you think I should mention in the future months, then please let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to add them to those months lists. Like if you like this, and subscribe if you want to see some more. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. It really does mean the world that you have chosen to take time out of your day to spend it with me. Let me know in the comments below what you're reading or what you think about the books I've mentioned, if you've already read them, or are they on your watch list too? So I will leave you with this quote. The worst thing about new books is that they keep us from reading the old ones. I hope you make some good book choices today, my friends, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Until next time, bye-bye. I never checked the pronunciation for these Greek names. P-H-A-E.
Phaedra.
Hippolytus, is that his name?
Hippolytus.
Hippolytus, okay. Hippolytus.
Cretan.